music on the big tomato. Let's kill the music and let's chat. All right, this one's chatting. This is just pure chatting. Let's go here. I'm going to lose the Yosemite. We'll keep him in. I'll move over a little bit. Are you ready? What a question that really was. And you know, it was something that made me think about it. It's like, because I wasn't sure. The guy that asked me this question, he's very abrupt, in that respect, and wants to justify a lot of things that are going on. I mean, minutia, uh, minutia. I'm not even sure where he's coming from on it. It's not somebody else that's a business coach or anything like this. It's just an outright friend, someone I work with in another place. So he asked me, he said, "Are you ready?" I was talking about the weekend and da 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 da, and he's like, "Are you ready?" He was referring to the races. All right. I'm like, "Am I ready for what? In what respect?" So forget about what his thought process was because I don't really know. Well, I do know. That's what I found out. But it was like, what was the first thing that came to my mind, on that one? And for me, it was actually lingo. Do I know or can I use the proper words when something comes up and use them without hesitation? Because and you do know, if you sat in the audience and you've listened to somebody speak and they hesitate a little bit too much, not hesitate, let's use the word pause. They pause a little bit too much and they're searching for words. That better be a golden word. It better be a very, very good word. But if it's not, and if it's a lingo word, then that person just does not know what they're talking about. Let's just go into pausing here a little bit, and it's different in different places too. If you and I are having a conversation, kind of like this, but if you and I are having a conversation and I could pause for a couple of seconds, that kind of thing. It's different. Pause on, if I pause in person, might be you get away with it a little bit longer. Pause on camera, whereas video, it's gonna be shorter. Because again, you're looking for words. If you're pausing on radio, oh, you can't. And that's where radio becomes a little bit tougher because you can't pause on radio. Pause on radio just becomes flat out dead air. As just a little aside over here. So in different places you can get away with different pausing effects. It's interesting. I'll give you one story about someone who paused, and he uh, this story includes some adult beverages, and I heard about it, and I do know the person that gave the presentation is from a career ago, as that one went. But it was a Friday meeting. Thursday, everybody was there. Thursday, everybody went out and he imbibed. Friday, he had to give one of the morning speeches, and he was not feeling terribly well. It's just stated like that. This is where pausing becomes this whole thing about pausing. It's not about drinking. He was not feeling terribly well. And this was an effective pause. Effective. And it's because when he paused, it was perceived as something much different than what it was. But it's the perception of the pause. That's important here. He got up, he started into his presentation. He would spit out a sentence and then he would catch his breath. He would catch well, perhaps he was stabilizing himself a little bit more on that one. And when he got done, he was thrilled. He was thrilled to be done with that presentation, thrilled to walk away, get off the stage, leave the podium, let that lectern stand there with somebody else and be done. And he was grateful for that. Here's what he did not expect is that people came up to him afterwards and they thanked him for giving such a great presentation. And he was like, really? Because he was just happy to make it through it without having to run off anyplace. And he was really surprised about that. And he asked him why, or he asked him why. Just something always a delicate question to do. He said, "Well, because when you spoke and when you stated something, you gave us a chance to think about it." He gave them a chance to think about it, yet he was pausing because he was stabilizing himself. Hmm. But it's perception. That's the big thing in there. So whatever the speaker's reasonings were, which not terribly healthy, but whatever the speaker's reasonings were for pausing were one thing, but the audience's reaction to it, the audience seeing and from their point of view, it became totally different. It became totally different. And they were very appreciative of the fact that he allowed the audience to think. Now, it was a technical speech. The guy knew his content. He's one of those. He just knows his content, knows it inside and out. So when he was up there speaking, he didn't have to think like that. He was not searching for words or anything like that. So when he paused, it was after some material, and it was a technical speech, so it was after some material that was shared. So that pause worked out pretty well. That was good in that situation. So if you're asking a question, a rhetorical question, and you're asking a rhetorical question to the audience, and you pause, you're allowing them to think. If you're a comedian and you're telling a joke and you pause after the joke, you're allowing those people in the audience to laugh. You're not stepping on the laughter. And you follow up with it at an appropriate time for them to slow down with the laughter, and then you take off again. You don't want the laughter to stop. You want to keep that momentum going. And if you do that with a rhetorical question, it's good. If you do that as a comedy, you get a laugh and you continue on with the whole thing. But if you were to pause because you're trying to find the right word, I'm sorry, if you were to pause and you were trying to remember a key word for that industry and you're standing on stage and you're the expert and you're being presented that way, that you're an authority on that, or you're a motivational speaker, you may not be an authority on that industry, but you search out for that keyword and it doesn't come to mind, and then you hesitate on that, you know what's going to happen? You're going to lose the momentum, just like that comic waiting a little bit too long, just like somebody doing a radio show and you got a longer pause than it's necessary. The momentum stops, the credibility stops. There's a big difference here between pausing for effect versus pausing to find a key word, or pausing to allow people to think. So when I was asked that question, are you ready? That was the first thing I thought of on my side of things, because I'm now, I don't know, 8 days or so into doing this, announcing in an industry or a sport that those words don't roll off the tip of my tongue all of the time. So here's a few things for you to consider if you are going to be, well, announcing something, a sport that maybe you're not that comfortable with or not that familiar with, is make sure you have your cheat sheet. I created one for me out there. I created a cheat sheet for myself, all those keywords that I'm supposed to use. Now, I'm not on camera, so I have it on I have a chair that I have over there, actually a bench that I have over there. So I've got that laid out right in front of me. So this way I have it, and it reminds me of those words that I'm looking to use. Doing a radio show, same kind of thing here. All right. Now, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. You're doing a radio show, you want to have your words, those keywords that you're looking to use, or key points, talking points you want to looking to use. You can have them right in front of you, and you can have it on a piece of paper. Maybe you have it on 2 pieces of paper. All right. That's all good. Now, here's some things to consider with that. Number one, all right, if you're going to have a piece of paper on a desk right in front of you and the host of that show, and I'm assuming you're going to be the guest over here, all right? If you're the guest, that role. If the host of that show is sitting at that table, really close to you, and you sit down and you put a piece of paper on the desk, the natural reaction for them is going to be to look at that piece of paper. Here's the one thing you don't want to do is just write down their names. Put down at the top of the paper, put it in small letters, the date of when you're doing the program, name of the program, host one, host two, and their names. And if you need, just nice and clear on the whole thing. So now when they look over at that piece of paper, and again, this is perception too. When they look over at that piece of paper, they're going to see that you've got the date, the name, maybe even the address of where the studio is, host one, host two, name of the show, and then a couple of your talking points, maybe a keyword or two in there. But so they're going to see that you're prepared, and it's going to give them a greater level of confidence when they're interviewing you, knowing that you are prepared for that program. So that's their perception of it. They may even want to take a look at it. And if you've got talking points on there, that's good. And maybe some shows, I expect to do a radio show in the next couple of weeks. I'm pretty sure they're going to ask me for some talking points. They did before. I think they will, again. I think they will again. It's still free form, but they still will ask for talking points. So I'll have that written down, and I will have that piece of paper written down over there for those talking points. But here's what you want them to see, that you're organized. Here's what you don't want them to see. If you just write down the name of the host or the two hosts at the top of the paper, and then your talking points, then it kind of looks like you need to remember their names. You don't want them to think that you can't remember their names, because they are very, very important in this whole thing. And you want them to know that you are valuing them and you're valuing the shows. That's why I think if you write down that little extra information over there, now it shows that you're organized and you got the whole picture there, not just those things that you have to remember, but everything else that goes along with it. If it's time to get in the studio, whatever information you put there, make it smaller, because you're not sharing that when you're on air and doing that. So are you ready? How do you get ready for these things? It's important to know the keywords, important to have a cheat sheet with you if you want, with your talking points and doing that. How you do it, well, it depends on the thing. Getting back to, I was not on camera. Nobody could see me. Also, when I had that piece of paper, nice big letters, and it was away from me, so it was just a matter of picking out a keyword every once in a while and using it. The microphone that I had to be really close to it in order for it to pick up my speaking. So the background noise was not much, and it was outside, and obviously there was cars. There was a lot of other ambient noise, I think the word would be, as that goes. So there was a bunch of other things. So if I were to take that piece of paper, it's actually a piece of cardboard, and so it's a stay put. When we're outside, the wind blows a little bit, consideration. Nobody would hear it. So it didn't matter. In a studio setting, different. Now, there is no other noise. The only noise you're hearing, Chris Afternoon, the only other noise you're hearing is going to be the studio noise, and there probably is none. It's probably a soundproof room, things like that. So the only thing that's being picked up, the only thing that should be being picked up, is going to be your voice and their voices. That piece of paper. If you have that piece of paper and you start moving it around, and that's a sensitive microphone that's picking up the noise, now it's going to hear that piece of paper. That's not look good. Also, if you're wearing jewelry too, nothing that jingles. So, ladies, if you're wearing a necklace, or guys, if you're wearing a necklace, and it's metal, and you move forward and it hits, if you wear a lapel mic, or if it just hits each other, the microphone is going to pick that up. So you don't want to wear those kinds of things. If you're wearing a lapel mic, be really, really cautious of any kind of a necklace, anything like that, because once it hits the mic, it picks up the sound. Also, if you put your hand on near the mic too, it'll pick that up. But the point is, with the piece of paper, it will pick up the sound of the piece of paper. So now, not only do your host know that you have a piece of paper, the people listening are going to hear something ruffling. and it's going to stand out. On the weekends when I do this thing, I could have anything making noise. It's not going to stand out because there's a ton of other noise. But if there is no other noise, that's something to be very, very cautious of. So in the idea of are you ready, it's not just having the lingo. It's not just being prepared of what you are going to say. It's these other surrounding things that go along with it. Even to the point of, are you dressed the part? Whether you're on camera or not on camera, are you dressed the part? No, I'm doing this thing over here. Do I have to dress the part? A little bit I do, right? I gotta wear a shirt, button down looks better than a t-shirt, unless of course, all right, Chris, it's a Long Island needs a drag strip t-shirt, then it's appropriate, but then it's appropriate. If I'm sitting here talking about, drag racing, that's totally appropriate. If I'm sitting here talking about, the Take Steps walk over there, for the nonprofit, I'm wearing that shirt. That's totally appropriate. All right. So what happens though is here, going back to, are you ready? Here is the first place that you need to be ready because you're going to go in and do this program or outside, wherever you're doing it, or in a speech, in an auditorium with an audience, wherever it is. You need to be confident and you need to look the part for yourself. And that confidence level comes from that all the time. You're putting on your uniform. You're getting your game face on. Yeah, maybe you've got to listen to some powerful music before you go on. I know some of the motivational speakers are like that. It's kind of crazy sometimes what goes on behind the scenes, right? And I can tell you, I got my own stuff that, behind the scenes, right? Somehow I got to make sure my shoelaces are tied properly. I don't know what to tell you. It's just shoes have to be done right. I make sure I got like fresh socks on beforehand because I want to be, comfortable. Don't want to be thinking about these other distractions, things like that come up. Want to make sure I got whatever paperwork I need relatively in hand, right? That kind of stuff. Does it matter? Water is another thing. Does it matter to the audience? No, nobody even sees any of that stuff. You're not checking to see if my shoelaces are tied properly. I'm not a shoe salesman. You don't know. And even if it does get caught on camera, you looking at that? I don't think so. But it's something that gets me ready to go and do. So are you putting on that uniform? And maybe that's the biggest challenge we got. Yeah, Chris, you definitely do, right? Are you putting on the uniform even? And this has been the problem here, I think, with Zoom, right? Gosh, we've seen some of these embarrassing moments that come up with Zoom, right? Oh, you're on a Zoom call. I spoke to someone who was a student, right? Zoom call. It's like, how's that been going to classes, on Zoom or attending meetings on Zoom or business events, networking events, all these things on Zoom. Like, oh, I'm not as engaged. Okay, why? Could be two different reasons here. Definitely could be two different reasons. It could be the speaker sucks. Hey, these teachers, I give them a whole lot of credit. A lot of them were thrown into situations that all of a sudden they became Zoom stars, and they were like, they've never done anything with the camera before. They're setting it up or any rest of that stuff, or even wanting to do that. It's all about that personal interaction if you're a teacher. And with a lot of the motivational speakers, a lot of professional motivational speakers too, because it was that body language. Comics, oh my gosh, 100%. 100%. It's so much harder to be a comic online than it is to be a comic in person, without a doubt. So the speakers obviously have to be ready, but so does the audience. There's some of that responsibility that has to go on that side of it also. So these folks that show up at these Zoom meetings that don't even have the camera on, it's like, where are they? Where are they? If you're taking the time to go and attend these things, you're not even turning the camera on, you're not there. You're definitely not there, and then it really makes sense to do this. It's not just your attire, at least from shirt up, right? but but the background, that has to be proper too. So here's the thing though, the more you as an audience member put yourself, get yourself ready to learn, to participate, to enjoy for that fact, the more engaged you are. And I tell you, it definitely helps the other person who's doing the presentation because they see people. Look, it's tough. I do this thing, right? What am I doing? For the most part, it's the comments. Definitely appreciate that. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us. But for the most part, I'm staring at a camera. It's right there. If I had a second screen, I could put it behind me. That would be nice. I can see what's going on. But for the most part, it's the camera. When I'm at some of these other meetings and there's people that are online that you could see the rest of that stuff, then it's different. If I'm looking at that and all it is just a bunch of names and nobody's there, it's like, who am I talking to? Here I get who I'm talking to. There, if it's something you should be participating in, then participate and go that route. Make that work. So that ready thing is big on both sides. So I got a couple of minutes left over here. So let's go back to that original question that the guy asked me. Are you ready? My first thought was the lingo. Why? And this is how with the racing. All right. Why? It's because that to me is my weakest point on the whole thing. I definitely don't want to get this stuff wrong all the time. Granted, in the beginning, I got it wrong. It was fine. I made humor, made humor out of the whole thing there. It's good. Only goes so far. Only goes so far. If it was a different audience all the time, hey, you know what? Then it's different. If I'm speaking in Branson, Missouri, and the audience changes all the time, hey, I can say the same thing all the time. Yeah, because it's a different audience. If that audience is pretty much the same or a lot of repeat people over there, I can't keep saying the same thing and make fun of the same thing. It's not good for them. More importantly, it's not good for me. I want to continue growing. So that was why that one came to mind, for me. From his perspective, I wasn't it. He wanted to know why I'm doing this thing in the first place. What is it? What am I looking to get out of it? And it was like, that was not on my mind. It was definitely not top of my mind. I mean, I'm thinking, look, we all do stuff, the what's in it for me, kind of thing. And then this too is another, what's in it for me. I'll give you that, you know. And I know some of that is like a who knows that goes along with it. My biggest thing for doing this, was the fact that it was new. It was just something new. So that was my secondary thoughts to answer his question. Is like I'm having a fun time, I'm learning something new, I'm meeting new people, and I'm in front of a whole, different kind of situation. That was the whole thing that went along with it. But that's not the are you ready thing. You know, definitely not the are you ready thing. So keep that in mind. All right. When you're preparing to do a video by yourself, you got to get your own motivation going. Do that in any way, shape, or form, right? Any way, shape, or form. If you want to make sure that you're eating properly, the rest of that stuff, and your voice doesn't give out, you're going to drink water. Most people stay away from dairy because it makes them phlegmy to put it up. You speak to singers about that. I learned that from singers. Again, this is why I like doing different things because you learn things from different people at different points. And I never would have asked that question. It's just that it was told to me. Somebody that I know, Paige Patterson, who's a singer, she said she only drinks non-dairy. And I said, oh, vegetarian, vegan, and I said, oh, no, 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 no. And then she told me about the voice thing. I was like, okay, cool. Write that down. you know, Make sure we don't drink milk or anything like that prior to speaking, either for this or at other situations. You learn something new. Makes me a little bit more ready because I know that. Who knew? Notes. Keep the notes. All right. You need to learn. All right. Go ask questions. Find out. When it came to the racing, what I did is that I was asked questions, but I didn't even know what I didn't know. And I didn't know what question to ask. So it's kind of tough for me to go to somebody. It's like, hey, what should I say? Well, if they've ever been on the microphone and never announced races before, they may not even know what to say, but they know all the lingo. So what I did is I watched races, countless hours of them that were taking place someplace else. And I'm sorry, I didn't really watch the races. I listened to the announcer. Listened every time there was a word in there I didn't get. I did that. All right. If you're a professional speaker, and you're going to go speak in a different industry someplace, and you've never spoke for that industry before, what you do is you go to Google and you Google lingo for auto industry, lingo for whatever industry, aerospace industry, and then go find those words, listen to those words, and be able to use those words in a sentence. And if you need to write them down someplace, figure out where you can write them down. In my case, again, for the most part, I'm not on camera. So I got them on this bench that's sitting next to me on a big manila folder, big letters. I don't have the definitions of them there. That's too much to read. I have the words and I know how to use the words. If you're going to be doing it on a radio show, TV show, look to see where the camera is, what this camera is going to see, and have it there. If you're doing it on a radio show and the camera's not on you, you could look down. That's fine. All right. Don't want to look down all the time because your hosts, don't want to see you having to look for answers all the time. If you're doing a TV show, it's different. You got to look at the camera angle. All right. So for this, if I'm going to use notes where I need to put those notes, and you see me turn quite frequently over here to go look at videos or even to go look at the clock. All right. Where I should have it would be on a second screen or a whiteboard or something like that behind the camera. Like if I look up a little bit, you really can't tell. And if I'm just glancing, right, I'm not staring over here. Now I have the information behind me. So be aware of what the camera can see. Definitely be aware of what the camera can see. Here's an interesting one I was told. Motivational speaker. And this one blew me away. Motivational speaker had notes, had different notes. And this is for a longer speech, right? Let's call it a 30-minute speech. Had 3 topics they wanted to talk about. 3 topics, 10 minutes each topic. Wanted to use a different spot on the stage for each of these topics. So what did the speaker do? Wrote out their notes, very big letters. Where are you going to put the notes? Because the speaker moves, right? You're a motivational speaker. You're not attached to a lectern. You're moving. Before the audience, and you're speaking on a stage, before the audience got there, the speaker went up and taped that note in 3 different spots. Topic 1 on the right stage, topic 2 left stage, topic 3 right smack in the middle. That's the ending topic. Did their opening, knew where the opening was. We have that prepared all the time. That's good. And then did topic number 1 on the right side. Notes are on the floor. Can you glance down at the floor if you're a speaker? The answer is yes. You glance down there once or twice in a 10-minute range, no one's going to pick up on that. Nobody would see those notes either. I had no idea. I had asked this to someone giving a presentation at Toastmasters meeting. Like, how do you remember what you're going to say? And they said, well, stand up and go over to the stage. I had the notes taped down. I was like, get them out of here. I was like, wow, who knew? I never saw him sitting down. Never would have thought about it, but that's the trick over there. So next time you go see somebody speak that's giving a longer speech, stand up, go take a look on the stage, see what's there. Obviously, if you're an lectern, it's a whole different story. That's easy. If you're using a PowerPoint, that's easy too. You just slides become your triggering visual for you to make comments on. But that thing on there. So there's different ways to do that. There's different ways to get ready. But you got to understand where you're at, how you're doing it, and who sees it and how they see it, or who hears it if it's a quiet room, and do that. And that's how do you get ready? You need to get ready on a higher level, confidence to go and do different things. Hey, that's a whole nother topic. And you want to know something? Here's what I suggest you do. You tune in. You can Google Glenn Rudin, who's going to be joining me. Glenn Rudin, about how to get ready, actually, when it comes to delivering an elevator pitch and a whole bunch of other things that goes along with it. Glenn's going to be my guest Friday, tomorrow. So I look forward to that. And again, Glenn and I kind of speak on the same thing differently. You want to speak to somebody how they get ready? They do. Everybody's got a process. It's slightly different for everybody. Who should you speak to about how you should get ready? Speak to a couple of different people, but understand your process is your process. And that should be unique to you, and it should be what makes you feel that you could conquer the world. And you can conquer the world. Maybe a small piece of it, maybe it grows, but just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Put yourself in different situations and have the confidence to do it. You need help on something? Go. I mentioned Miller Business Center, Small Business Center, friends, folks in the industry, people that have hired you. Ask them. Ask them. Be very, very clear. Why did you hire me? Why do you want me to speak to your group? Why do you want me to do this? And then in the back of your mind, always have what do you want to get out of it? And if you do that, you're going to speak well. You're going to speak often, and you will live inspired. And you do it really well. You will inspire others to go out there and do the same and be better at what they do and go out there and conquer the world, their little piece of it, to make this whole place that much better each and every day. And I do believe that to be the case. Maybe we'll hit that topic one day too. All right. Have a great day. Looking forward to tomorrow, 1:00 again. Always 1:00. That's good. 90% of the time, at least 1:00. Every once in a while, we got conflicts as that happens. If you're going out this weekend, Saturday. That's right. Saturday afternoon into evening. Going to be a whole lot of fun. Whole lot of fun. Chris, I'll definitely see you out there to be good. Mike, you know what? You get out there this Saturday. Maybe I'll go out there with you on some other day. We'll go for a bike ride. Got to get a bike ride in there. All good, folks. Again, thank you so much. Enjoy the day. Get outside. Summer is maybe coming to a close, but the beautiful fall weather is right around the corner. Oh, and I look forward to that. Stay well.